Hey everybody, it's Bob Crossan, Senior Managing Editor of Water and Waste Digest, and today I have with me GM. She is CBM Smith's Environmental Engineer, and she's also the Vice Chair of the AWWA Young Professionals Committee. And today we're going to be talking all about young professionals. WWD has recently opened its nominations for 2021 Young Professionals, so you can find a nomination link in our description, and also we'll make sure to include some links for the AWWA Young Professionals Committee, so if you want to get involved there, you'll have plenty of chances to do so in the description below. But first, let's talk to G. So G, thanks so much for being on the call. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so why don't we start with the Young Professionals Committee? Can you talk about kind of the work that you've been doing there? What are some of the goals for 2021, and where are things headed with that? I know it seems like the pandemic's probably creating some complications on how you get all these young professionals rounded up.
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah, let's cover some basics. Young Professional Committee for AWWA, American Water Works Association. We're a very passionate group of water YPs. We're passionate about the water industry and bringing people together. Our core mission is really to connect, educate, engage, and represent young professionals and students in the water industry. Simply stated, that means that we represent the YP members of AWWA, provide them with various types of opportunities. We work with the section YP committees to make sure they have the resources they need to be successful with their local members. The committee is made of 13 voting members, myself being one of them. It's a selection process. You could renew up to 2 terms, and each term is 3 years. Our work is really operated through our 3 subcommittees, and they are conference and events, student outreach, and association outreach subcommittees. And each of these subcommittees has very specific objectives. So for example, conference and events, they plan and facilitate activities at AWWA's conference and events, simple as that, except it's a lot of work. So our flagship YP event is the Young Professionals Summit, which Bob, that you attended a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in collaboration with the Water and Environment Federation, or WEF. It's really, Bob, you could test this, a mega leadership networking training event, really specifically geared for water and wastewater YPs. So that subcommittee really spent a lot of time and effort planning that program together in terms of the technical program, sponsorship, the local section planning. There's a lot that goes into that. And that's just one of them, one of the conference events. We also plan our annual AWWA leader training, which is specific for AWWA members. That's really to bring together the YPs and student leaders of the water industry to learn, brainstorm, and share their experiences, so we can do things better, whether it's from running your YP section, YP committee in your section, or taking your AWWA volunteer work to the next level. Mm-hmm. And we also do, I don't know, have you attended ACE, Bob?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I've
so
attended that every year.
Yeah, it's a great, I love that conference. So ACE, we also do a ton of stuff there. We do lunch with the boss for networking. We do YP tracks. As part of the technical program, we do the fresh ideas poster session. We do networking events. So that's all under that subcommittee. And that's just one of the 3 subcommittees that we talked about. The other 2, I'll be more brief. We have student outreach subcommittee, which supports the association in really engaging the student chapters of AWWA. So we brainstorm, plan, and facilitate student webinars that focus on, how to run your student chapter better, provide any event ideas. Now that we're all virtual, we help them try to figure out how you can engage your student members, train them on interview skills, resume building, networking tips, things like that. So our last subcommittee is the association outreach subcommittee. And they're really responsible for that, connecting and engaging proportions of our mission statement. And all year long, not just at YP Summit, not just at ACE, all year long, by building the relationship with the various section YP committee chairs and vice chairs. We call ourselves kind of committee liaisons to those sections. And we also work with AWWA on journal articles to get the YP voices out there and represented on those platforms. outside of subcommittees, we also do, a couple of different things. We represent YP interests by being liaisons to important spaces like a lot of the councils, so technical and educational council, where it has all those great committees that do all this volunteer work, standards councils and manufacturers and associates councils. So to make sure we're kind of collaborating all across the board with the rest of the AWWA volunteers on important issues and initiatives. So that's a brief intro to as a committee. And I think you asked about the goals for this year, right?
Yeah. Before we go into the goals, I just wanted to
Yeah, yeah.
reiterate the YP Summit
Mhm.
that I attended. I attended that last year with my colleague Lauren Del Cello, and it was it was awesome. I loved it. I learned so much. I made so many connections. If you are a young professional in this industry, you are missing out by not going to something like that. That the for me it was being at a conference where I was culturally connected to a lot of people, where I felt like I more belonged than some of the bigger conferences where there's such a huge range of generations that are represented. And so having that cultural touchstone with one another is difficult, but at the YP Summit it was like so easy to just and fluid, and I felt like I was able to have conversations that I couldn't really have anywhere else. And I just wanted to relay that it was a tremendous experience, and I really recommend any young professional to go to it. So,
There's a lot of like empowerment among kind of like being in the same space with like-minded people who have
mhm.
similar goals, that similar interests as you, similar path as you. So I'm so glad to hear that, because that is absolutely one of the major objectives of having YP summits, to engage them and empower them and make them feel like they belong in this industry and like they could play
Mhm.
a huge part.
Well,
So
big check mark on that one for you guys. So,
check. Great.
yeah, but the goals for 2021, what do you guys have coming up?
Woo, so I feel like it's really difficult to talk about the goals for this year without kind of stepping back and talking about 2020.
Yeah.
So our typical schedule, we just talked about having that great YP summit in Anaheim, which feels like just like a different world back in February 2020. Our typical schedule will be that we have that great YP summit. And then from then on, we work on, the ACE planning for all the events and, activities there. And from then, and that's like an important part of the year, because that's when like the members roll off and we get new members on. And then from then on, we're planning YP Summit along with everything else.
Mhm.
But as you know, ACE was canceled. And the YP Summit that was supposed to happen, I think this month, also got, postponed. So that definitely, changed things around. So all of that in-person work had to kind of like shut down, right? But the rest of our typical operation really continued. Our association outreach subcommittee continued to work with all of the sections to brainstorm and help them better engage their YP members. We continue to push the YP articles out on AWWA journals. We really ramped up our efforts to connect with students. The students really need our help right now to get them engaged, help them look for internship or job opportunities, and just like not not feel so hopeless about their future and like after graduation, what am I going to do this summer? So we continue to do our like regular webinars there, bringing them resources, and we actually just collaborated with the Technical and Education Council (TEC) of AWWA to hold a really successful networking event. Networking slash like a committee introduction fair webinar, where 80 students called in to get to know what other committee are out there and other volunteer opportunities are out there. So that was really good. Also, one of our goals that we have been working on, we really started to dive more into this early last year before the YP Summit, to bring more awareness and actions to improve the diversity on the committee and just become more inclusive as a community. So that's been a continuous like project and focus in the committee. We've been also talking a lot about how we can better serve YPs of the water industry, which is what we do, and how we can get YPs to, with more like how can we get their employers to support their involvement, how can we get them to go to ACE, because it's always in different locations. So we've been continuously working on that, brainstorming ideas, and one way I guess we're trying to do that is to highlight the YP contributions and accomplishments. That's like one angle we're taking. So for example, we just helped establish AWWA's first YP award. We call them 5 under 30, and it's going to be awarded to 5 YPs each year, and they'll be recognized at ACE every year from now on. So this upcoming ACE in San Diego, hopefully if it's in person, that'll be the first time where we're doing so. So that's one of our, pretty significant efforts that was in the works. So considering all of this progress that we've been making throughout the pandemic since 2020, our goal this year is really to continue the momentum and continue that engagement for however long this virtual world is going to last. And importantly, we're going to be having our first YP Summit virtually this year. So the one that was supposed to take place at the end of this month or early next month, it's getting postponed to, it got postponed to August this year, and that's actually going virtual. I don't know if that's an official news yet, but hopefully by the time this goes out, it'll be official. But so that's gonna be a new challenge that we're gonna have to take on. As Bob, you mentioned, there's so much value to that in person, being in the same space and having to like talk over dinner, having to get together for breakfast, and just like being in the group setting in person. So that's just gonna be a whole different challenge that we're gonna have to really tackle and make sure it's successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and just kind of on that note, one of the things I wanted to talk to you is about kind of the themes, issues, concerns, things that that young professionals are looking for when it comes to like their careers and what they want to do moving forward. What are those common issues, themes, and concerns that you hear from young professionals kind of through your work, and how do you relay that to like employers? You mentioned specifically like trying to get employer buy-in to join in these programs and send their young professionals and give them that professional development that they really do need and deserve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so some of the common issues and concerns that I hear, I think first it's really important to note that a lot of people going to the water industry not to get rich, not to make money, not to like, it's a lot of people go into it because they believe that they're doing something good. They believe that, they believe that their work is gonna matter and it's gonna make positive impacts, to those around you and in the world, or the earth. So a lot of YPs are very passionate and they want to be impactful, and those are all really amazing things. Some of the concerns that I hear are, I think there are some challenges with regards to how quickly the industry is changing. There's a lot of new challenges. There are a lot of issues that are coming up that we cannot deal with before, whether it's cybersecurity, emerging contaminants in water quality, and these issues are really something that takes all sorts of talents and skill sets, in my opinion. So with this industry changing very quickly, with all these issues that didn't exist, say 10, 20, 30 years ago, right? And now YPs are thrown into this industry in the middle of all this. And I think what they have to tackle is our industry overall seems to be very conservative. And that's a good thing in many ways because we're dealing with public health. We're dealing with drinking water that people have to drink every day and rely on you for that health, right? And safety with their bodies. So being conservative in our work, in the way we do things, is a very good thing in some ways. But at the same time, relying on sort of like what's been done and proven to work, those tried and truth methods, has a way of holding us back from innovations, creativity, or trying new ways of doing the same things, which I think a lot of YPs are very open to and almost do without even trying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and those are very critical along with these like conventional solutions. Those are also important and needed to tackle these present and future challenges. So I think that's sort of like a big picture challenge that I hear from a lot of my peers in the water industry.
Yeah, that aversion to risk makes sense when you're talking about drinking water and public safety, right? But to some
Totally, yeah.
degree, taking a little bit of risk on a new technology that could ultimately save a lot of money for a utility or change the outcome of their water for their entire community, that kind of a thing
Mm-hmm.
the benefits can be so great. And I think the real challenge there is where do you find that middle ground, that sweet spot of like, this is the perfect amount of risk for reward?
Yeah, totally. I mean, even not just technologies, it's even like how do we even communicate to our customers, right?
Mhm.
Like it can be forever, just like, the notices in your bills, or like, are you gonna finally take that social media account? So there's just like many aspects of how we do things in the water industry. I think that could use creativity, innovation, and just like optimization.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of utilities as well, one of the concerns that I do hear from our utility audience members is the challenge of finding and hiring qualified workers. I think that this is pretty common among almost all what is considered blue collar work. Um, and I mean, how do programs like this, the YP committee, or like YP programs that you guys are doing, how do you guys try and work with that? You mentioned like working with schools, especially to try and bring young people into the fold, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's a very real concern. The retiring workforce, especially, that's adding a huge burden on a lot of these utilities on what their future is going to look like, right? I think there are some challenges there too, in terms of is there enough time for knowledge transfer for those new ones that come along to fill those spots? Do they have internal barriers with folks who are leaving? Are they investing enough time with these new folks to for implementing changes that's going to help them do things better with someone with less experience? Or I think also some of our peers are feeling like maybe not they're not taken seriously to have certain leadership or management position in these utilities, just because again so many professionals are exiting from retirement and there's like younger and younger folks coming in. So those are some of the challenges I hear. As you mentioned, AWWA does a ton of outreach to college. We have our own student chapters to make sure they're engaged and interested in potential waterworks or water industry careers. There's also been a greater focus on K through 12 education to make sure we're getting these students earlier on and sparking their interest in potential water industry careers. And I guess a couple more things. With the I know, for example, the New England section has started this initiative. It's called Water Works, except like works is all capitalized.
Mhm.
Um, and it's a new initiative to really centralize job opportunities and have it become much more accessible and promoted to potential candidates out there, and really just promote the waterworks opportunities for the utility members. So I know that initiative has been ongoing in New England, which I think is so important, and hopefully that goes well and other sections could take advantage of it as well. A couple other
Mhm.
things I want to mention too. There are incredible networking opportunities at AWWA. I know so many folks who have moved from consulting or manufacturing into members just because they developed the relationships with certain people in utility organizations, and they were able to be recruited and like kind of jump ship. And
Mhm.
I think that's also an important way of keeping our talents in the industry. I'd rather see them go to the utility rather than to like gas and oil or energy or like somewhere else, right?
Mhm.
So that networking that happens in the industry is, I think, very crucial to like keeping our talented YPs in the industry. And finally, I think it's also really important for all the different generations of a utility organization, or really any organization, to like understand each other, understand what each other values and what makes them important to, what makes them come to work every day, right? So I think that's really important for retention, succession planning, and all that good things. So at the UMC that's coming up, YP committee submitted an abstract that will have a few YP managers and employees of utilities, just to have like an open space and like a platform to talk about what's important to YPs. Why are you working in utilities? Why do you come to work every day? Kind of sort of those important questions. So like different generations of those organizations can gain a perspective of what it's like to be YPs in utilities. And I think those conversations are really important for us to tackle this, workforce issues.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because if you can connect with that core value structure,
Mhm.
that makes it so much easier to get them interested, right? Like, oh,
Totally,
my our
yeah.
core values align with your core values. Don't you want to work with us?
Totally, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
You have to remember that you have to like get them to utility, and they also have to stay, you know,
Yes.
so to be on the same page all along. So
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned some of our peers sometimes feeling like they're not being taken quite as seriously. And I wanted to talk to you about that, kind of like the barriers that kind of exist for young professionals in water and wastewater, and
mhm.
um, how those can be broken down, both from the young professionals angle and from that employer angle. So I didn't know if you
Oh,
had any thoughts to
yeah.
share on that.
Yeah, gosh, there are, I think I could definitely think about a few additional barriers too, you know, like we talked about, you know, not being taken seriously, but also I think a lot of YPs feel like maybe they don't feel confident enough to feel like they bring something to the table. You know, I'm not experienced enough, you know, I don't know enough,
Mm,
right? But I think it's really important. And, you know, this goes down to how we could break down those barriers for all parties, whether it's, you know, YPs or, you know, their employers or associations like AWWA. We really need to recognize that everyone at the table, despite age and experience, brings something unique to the table, and we need to identify those strengths and like value them and leverage them.
mhm.
So like I want all the YPs out there to feel like you bring something to the table, you know, like yes, you do need you need experience, you need to gain them, especially if you're doing like, you know, technical work, right? Like I'm not gonna be able to like design a beautiful water treatment plant that works all the time on my day one of the job, right? So like yes, you need experience, but also recognize that you bring so much to the table, you know, a fresh set of eyes, new perspectives, new ideas, you know, creativity, much easier ways to deal with social media and technology. So like you kind of have to have faith in yourself that like you're gonna bring something to the table and be confident, you know, and speak up. I think also just kind of thinking of other barriers, you know, I think we were kind of talking about also bridging those generational gaps as well within the organization. I think a lot of YPs, as I started, you know, they want more meaning, they want to have more impact from their work, they want to be engaged, they want to be communicating. Um, Again, like having those transparent, you know, clear, honest communication, I think it's going to help bringing everyone together and realize what's important from, you know, each person at the table and on that team. um, so how can we further break down the barriers? I think it's
Yeah.
really important that industry, from organizations and AWWA, we need to work together to identify opportunities for YPs to grow, really just like help them feel like they belong in this industry, as we just talked about, and then, you know, empower them so they could bring their best ideas forward, feel comfortable enough to do that and take actions, because that's really the only way we can really tackle these challenges that are looming over us, of the in this industry, whether it's now or 10 years later. In order to have that, we really need to work together to agree that investing in your YPs is a critical part of your organization and this industry for our short-term and long-term or like operation and success. We need members of all age, all experiences to bring their best selves to work to thrive in this quickly changing industry. So again, I think we need to be transparent in our communication. We have to create that open space and environment for honest and productive conversations, so YPs feel empowered to lead their career in a way that benefits them and their organization, and the organizations to be clear about their expectations while understanding and hopefully supporting their YP employees' goals and growth. Did that make
Mhm.
sense?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I
Okay, I
think
feel like
that
I just like war vomited everywhere.
no
So.
way, no way. And it got me
Okay.
realizing some of the things that you said earlier too about the passion of these young professionals in the industry, about them wanting to make a difference. And I think one of the
Mhm.
other things that employers kind of overlook a lot of times is showing that direct through line of like, here's the work that you did, here was the outcome, and this is why you were
The big
successful.
picture, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yes.
showing how every team member in that project had a role, played a role that was pivotal. Because I
Mhm.
think that when you get to that
Yes.
point where you're like your role was important, it makes that person feel special, and that is
Totally. Yeah.
ultimately going to that hits all the notes of like, I'm passionate, I want to make sure my work is doing good, so on and so forth. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, before we let you go, I wanted to make sure that we could plug the YP program for you guys at AWWA. How can people get involved? Where can they go? How can they get more information about the Young Professionals program for American Water Works Association?
Yeah, so AWWA has a great page dedicated to YP committee. There's so many ways you could get involved, even virtually now. If you're interested, if you're working on interesting projects, you could submit an abstract. There's still virtual conferences, webinars, and all that good stuff going on. So you could present your work, or you could write an article. I literally just published an article on Journal of AWWA, not a technical one, just talking about how awesome YPs are and how you could get involved. So it doesn't have to be very technical. Just bringing your perspectives on those platforms I think is very important. You could always organize. Well, first of all, you should try to figure out who your YP committee contact is in your section. If you're not already involved in your section, you could offer to host like a virtual happy hour, which will be huge just for engaging your peers in your industry locally. You could start a book club for your YP committee. And once we go back to doing things person, there will be definitely more volunteer opportunities. But again, there's just so many ways to get involved. Oh, there's going to be on water equation fundraiser, WeWalk. There was a very successful one last year that's kicking off on March 1st. So that's another way you could get involved immediately by starting a team and committing to walking certain number of miles. So you could be active outside during this pandemic and raising some funds for water equation, which supports so many of our really great YP activities, including like YP Summit and leader training and whatnot. So if you're still confused, you have any questions, feel free to email me or call me, contact me. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, G. I really appreciate you taking the time. And like I said at the top of the whole episode, we'll have links in the description for all this so that you can find it very easily. And it just escaped my mind at the beginning, but this is actually the 50th video that I've done, so it's really awesome
That's
that
awesome.
yeah,
Wow.
what a good episode to have with you on here, G, and talking about young pros. So yeah,
Yeah,
appreciate all the time and you coming on during such a busy week for you. So.
no problem. Well, hopefully we could see each other at the next ACE or YP Summit in person.
Absolutely. I sure hope so. And we hope to see everyone else there too.
Yes, everyone else be there.